Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. If you are new here, my name is Caro. To my VVIPs, thank you guys for always coming back to watch my video. So recently YouTube has been updating us on what happens to our channel weekly, the most watched video, the sharing, the likes, and otherwise. Okay, and from the videos that have been popping up every week is the straight skirts I made about 2 to 3 years ago when I started my YouTube channel. And over a year now, I've actually updated my straight skirts. At least I've done little changes, okay, from what I've learned from other designers. Okay, so I've updated my straight skirts. There's a little changes, and these changes has brought a significant fitting to my clients. I've done worked on it for small size, medium size, large size, and extra large clients, and the fitting is amazing. I can tell you that if it has worked for me, it's going to work for you guys. So without wasting much of your time, I think we should get started. But before we get started, if you have not subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe to my channel and press that notification bell. And at the end of the video, if you find it interesting, why don't you just give us a thumbs up so that the video can get out to so many people who are in love with how to draft a straight skirt. Okay, thank you so much guys. I love you so much. So guys, I've drawn my frame. A frame is my hip measurement plus 1 inch is. So the frame here is now hip divided into 2, which is 20 inches. Okay, so that's what I have here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is to mark our vertical measurement, which is my waist to hip, my waist to knee, then the skirt length. Actually, the waist to knee is an approximation. That means about 2 inches to 3 inches away from the waist to knee measurements. Then my waist to hip is an approximation too. Is 1/3 of your waist to knee. Is you can guess your waist to hip in case you don't have the person's measurements. Okay, so I'm going to mark my waist to hip. The measurements will be written on the screen. Okay, so my waist to hip is 8 inches, so I will mark the verticals. Then I'm going to mark waist to knee 20 inches. Like I said, is about 3 inches away from the actual waist to knee measurements. Then I'm going to mark the actual length of the skirts, which is 30 inches. Okay, so I'm going to mark that across, then I will square the lines. Okay, so I'm going to be drafting the front and the back simultaneously. So this place is going to be for center front, while this is going to be for the center back. So the next thing is I'm going to divide my hip into 4, which is 10 inches. If you divide 40 into 4 is 10 inches. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow 3/4 of an inch from the front to the back. So the back will now be 10 3/4 inches. So I'm going to mark that to split the front and the back. Okay, so this will be 10 3/4. So I'm going to mark that all through the vertical lines from the waist to the hip to the approximated knee and to the skirt length. Then I'm going to connect. Okay, so that means we're going to be left with 9/4 for the front skirts. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is I'll walk simultaneously, or I just walk for the back then the front. So I'm going to mark 3/4 inches for the center back. due to the bulging at the back. For those who have a flat butt, you can use half an inch, but I'm going to be using 3/4 inches. Okay, so I will mark that, connecting it towards the hip. Okay, next thing I'm going to mark now is to mark my waist measurement. Now the waist measurement, as you saw on the screen, is 29. 29 divided by 4 is a 7/4 inches. Okay, now if you have watched some of my tutorials on top, I said for the back, I'm going to for the waist, I'm going to borrow 1/4 inches to the front. Reason, because the front, because of the protruding of the tummy. If you have a client that they have a flat tummy, you can just divide into 4 and use it like that. But for anybody that has the protruding tummy, please just borrow 1/4 inch from the back to the front on the waistline. Okay, this is standard. This is what I use for all sizes. Okay, so now 29 divided by 4 is 7/4. So I'm going to give 1/4 inches to the front, so the back is going to be 7 inches. So I will mark the 7 inches here. Then I'm going to mark the dart. The dart I'm going to use here, I'm going to use 1/4. Now you can see that the difference between the hip and the waist is quite high, but I'm going to manage this. If there's a difference on your clients, maybe the difference between the waist and the hip is more than 10 inches, and is actually obvious, then you need to do a 2-dart skirt. If you want me to do a tutorial on that, please mention in the comments and tell me if we should do a tutorial on the 2-dart skirt. So the 2-dart skirt will be for the back, not for the front, because the front, now we have reduced the hip, so the difference will not be that much. Okay, so now I'm going to connect this to the hip. Okay, so but I'm going to come down from the measurements. I'm going to come down by 3/4 inch or 1 inch, depending. So I'll mark it straight, just for the fitting for the waistline. So I'll mark 3/4 inches before I will connect to the hip line. Okay, so I will use my hip curve to connect. Please do not use too much of the curve area, so that it won't give you bulging. But I will connect it maybe like 3/4 inches up from here to the 3/4 here, so that it will not be that obvious. Okay, so we'll connect that. Okay, so I will smoothen it, because since I'm having a bulge around that area. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my darts. Now I'm going to divide between here and here. I divide into 2. Okay, so I'll divide the waist between here and here into 2. So I'll mark a straight line. Okay, so my dart leg will be 5.5 inches. You can use 6 inches too if you want. Okay, so I'm going to divide the 1/4 into 2, which is 5/8 of an inch. So I will connect. Now if you want a better fitting, you can still bring this down by 3/4 of an inch. Before you connect. Okay, so I haven't done this. Then for the back, I'm going to reduce half an inch to remove an excess at the back. Okay, just to give you a better fitting. So we'll bring half an inch down. Then I will connect to the waistline, but I will fold my darts before I connect that. Okay, So you fold your dart and you connect it. Good. So I haven't done that, then I'm going to pencil it now. I'm going to be using from the knee, I'm going to move in by 1.5 inches, okay? And then I'm going to repeat that on the skirt length. I'm going to repeat that same thing on the skirt length, okay? If you want it more penciled, you can use 2 inches, but I prefer to use 1.5 inches because the material I'm using does not have the elasticity, okay? So if you have a material that has the elasticity, then you can remove 2 inches, okay? Or depending on the what you are designing, what your clients bring for you to design, then you can make it more pencil. With this method, even the fitting will be okay, the clients will work better, okay? So I'm going to mark 1.5 inches in from here. Okay, so I'll connect that towards the hip. Then coming down from the hip measurements, probably you can use 1.5 depending on how bulge the client has a hip. So I'll come down here by 1.5 or 2 inches thereabouts. Okay, so I'll connect from that point, from the nail to the hip. Okay, good. Then we're getting there. Then I will do the same thing to the skirt length by 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'll connect. Good. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to work on the butt area. Okay, so from the butt area I'm going to move in by 3/4 of an inch, just the same way like I said. If you have a client that the butt is very flat, use 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm going to use 3/4 of an inch in. Then I will connect towards the hip, not getting to the hip, probably 2 inches down or 3 inches down. Just connect. Okay, then I will repeat the same thing at the skirt length. I'll remove 3/4 of an inch. Then I will connect. Good. Okay, so it seems we are almost through with the back. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, let me work on the front skirt. So now the front skirt, remember we borrowed 1/4 of an inch from the waistline, so giving it to the waist of the front, the waist front is going to be 7.5. remember that the waist is 29 divided by 4, we have 7/4, and quarter was borrowed out from the back skirt. So I'm going to give the front the 7.5 inches. Okay, so now the darts I'm going to use is 1/4, the same 1/4 inches. But for this skirt, I don't want a dart. But if you want that, you can add that to your skirt. Okay, so the same thing, I'm going to come down by 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch before I connect to the hip. So I'm going to move down by 3/4 of an inch. Then I'll connect towards the hip. Okay, so good. So for the front, I'm going to move down by 3/4 of an inch. Reason is just to remove excess, okay, so that we will avoid much of those wrinkles around the waist. Okay, so I'm going to come down by 3/4 of an inch. Then I'm going to connect to the waist line. Good. Okay, so the same thing, I'm going to move in from here, from the knee point, 1.5 inches in. Then at the skirt length, I'm going to move in 1.5 inch in. So the same thing, I will connect towards the hip, not getting there, maybe 2 inches, 1.5 to 2 inches down from the hip. Okay, so I'll connect the knee to the skirt length. Good. So from the look of things, our skirt seems to be ready. So the next thing we need to do is to mark our slit point. Okay, now the slit is going to be, I'm going to use a 13 inches slit. Okay, the length of my slit will be 13. Then the width will be about, let me use 1 inch. 1 inch is okay. So I'm going to connect those points. Mark same 1 inch here. Okay, so I'm going to rub this off so that we won't get confused. So I'll connect. Good. So our skirt is partially ready. So what we need to add now is our seam allowance. Okay, so for the upper side, we can add half an inch seam allowance, half an inch seam allowance for sewing. Then for the hemming, you can add 1 to 2 inches. So I'm going to, this ruler is about 1 inch, so I'm just going to add 1 inch. So this is the hemming. Then I will do the same thing for the front. Okay, so this is hemming. Then the next thing is to add our seam allowance. You can use 3/4 to 1 inch, okay, or 1.5. For the zip allowance, you can use 1 inch. You can use same 1 inch from this point. 1 inch, 1 inch, and you can stop around the hip, or you stop below the hip. Now we have a, you can use a longer zip. Okay, so I'll rub this place off gently so that you guys will understand. So this is the zip allowance. Okay, so guys, the next thing to do is just to add your, maybe your grain line, depending on the grain you are sewing, you use your grain line. So I'm going to be cutting on a straight grain. Then what is left is if you want to label your skirts. So like I said, this is center front, and this is a medium size, which is size 12. You can write your name to keep it, or the name of the client on the pattern so that you understand. So guys, precisely this is how I draft my straight skirt. Now I've cut out the both the front and the back pattern out. So the next thing, if you want to use this as a skirt, you remember that you have to cut the band of the skirt. It might be bandless, it might be straight band, depending on the one you want. But remember that when you are cutting the band, you have to subtract that from your main skirt. Okay, you need to subtract that from this main skirt. So you are going to cut the band from here. But except you are making a high waist skirt, then that means you're adding about 2 inches to it. And even at that, you still need to cut a band for that. It might be bandless, but if you are adding band to this one, that means you are making it a high waist skirt. Okay, if not, if you are making the normal skirt from the waistline, this you are supposed to remove your band from the main skirt that we have cut now. Okay, or before drafting you would have subtracted your band length. Okay, so now my band can be, I can make my band 1.5 or 2.5 depending on what I want, but I will be using a band length, so I'm going to make it 2.5 inches. So I can just mark that here, folding my dart for the back. Remember, I don't have that in the front. Then I mark it, connecting the points. Okay, so this can be band showing directly, or it can be bandless. When I mean bandless, that means the band will go inside, and that's the method I will be making for what the dress I am making. Okay, because I'm going to use the band to fold it in. It's not going to have lining. Okay, so the same thing, we mark that on the front skirt. Mark 2.5 inches. Then I connect. Okay, so guys, haven't done this. This is our band length. Remember, if you want to cut it out, you have to remove the darts. Okay, so if I want now, I can just trace it on with a with another paper, or with a tracing paper, or I use a paper gum to trace it. Okay, so I have patches of tracing paper, of paper gum, so I can use this now to just trace it out, and I'll have my band directly. Okay, so I've cut it out, as you can see. So this is your band. So it can be bandless. You take it from the waistline and you take it inside this way. Okay, and if you want a band, that means you have to cut this out and use it as a band, adding your seam allowances. Okay, for everything. So guys, as you can see, that's how I draft my pencil skirts. Okay, so I'm attaching the band. I can cut it on the paper and attach to this. So guys, I think we've come to the end of our tutorial. If there's any question, please let me know from the comment section. And if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. I will pop more videos very soon. Okay, thank you so much guys. I love you, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.